I'm Travis Rotterman, Survey Historian at the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, and we're pleased to bring you to Toltec Mounds Archaeological Site for the February 2021 Sandwiching History Tour. This site is unique as it's an ongoing, active archaeological site. Artifacts found here date from as far back as 650 AD. It includes such items as arrowheads, tools, bone fragments, pottery, and more. Many of these items are visible in the site's visitor center, which is a popular field trip destination for schools. Since 1980, Toltec has been a state park. It is also a large tourist destination for folks from around the country. As with all of our Sandwiching History Tours, please check the websites and social media pages for hours of operation and COVID-19 guidelines. This place looks different now than it did when it was first documented in 1884 by Edward Palmer. He said there were 15 mounds ranging in height from 2 feet to approximately 50 feet. Today there are 3 surviving mounds within 100 acres of the once fertile farmland. The horseshoe-shaped body of water called Mounds Pond was, according to the National Register nomination, once part of the Arkansas River. The pond wraps around the mound site, allowing the visitors to rent kayaks from the visitor center so that they can see the site from a different angle. This mound group was officially listed as a National Historic Landmark in 1978. So as we look over the site, we have to wonder, who were these native people and why did they build here? For answers, we turn to Melissa Ray, park interpreter.
So an American Indian group lived here and occupied the site and built these mounds from about 650 to 1050 AD. And as you can see back behind me, there are 3 standing mounds here that remain original to this site. There are 18 that used to be. The native peoples would have actually lived and settled here for a reason. They were very smart. Instead of the Arkansas River, that would have flooded uncontrollably back then. They settled by Mound Lake because it only indirectly went back to it. So they could use their canoes and have all this transportation routes to get whatever they needed. But at the same time, it didn't flood as much as a river would have.
There were 13 original tribes in Arkansas, some of which you may have heard of. The Caddo, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw. The one that you will not find is the Toltec tribe. So why is the site called Toltec Mounds?
So we kind of have the wrong name for our park. I know that's weird to say from a state parks person, but the Toltec name stuck. It stuck in the community for a long, long time before our park opened. And so in the 1800s, it's kind of a funny story, but way after these American Indians left, there was a landowner by the name of Miss Mary Eliza Knapp. And Miss Knapp was a very educated woman. She was a part of the literacy club of her time. And she learned a little bit about anthropology and archaeology. She thought the Toltec people of Mexico built these huge stone pyramids, and so they looked a little bit like the pyramid shape that we see from these mounds today. The mounds were never pyramids per se, but she thought that the Toltec people came all the way up to Arkansas, built these huge monumental structures, and went all the way back. So it's a pretty interesting story, but the Toltec name stuck, even though a Smithsonian archaeologist came out and he later proved that wrong. These were American Indians from this time period, from this space. We like to call these people the Plum Bayou people because that is their archaeological given name.
The mounds today are around 50 feet tall, but appear larger in illustrations done in the 1800s. It is a job today of park staff to preserve this archaeological site and study the artifacts recovered to help future visitors and researchers understand the Plum Bayou people and their lifestyle.
So we have the tallest mound ever built in Arkansas here. It's about 50 feet tall, technically 49 feet, but we like to round, okay? It's back behind me. It's the middle one called Mound A, aptly named. So we try to protect the mounds as best as we can with the material and supplies that we have. So we do mow the mounds, to many people's surprise. We have special lightweight mowers and a really great maintenance crew that take care of the site in the most efficient way possible. They mow in a corkscrew basically up the mound and go back down because of erosion. So erosion chips away at things, and over time it can really hurt the height of those mounds. The best known example is if you look at Mound A and Mound B, and then you compare it to some illustrations when people were coming early on, it does change a little bit. You can definitely see a little bit of a change.
We're out here in winter, as it is a beautiful time to come see the mounds out here at Toltec Archaeological State Park. It is speculated that these mounds help the native people track what time of year it was.
The astronomical alignment is one of the most interesting things about the site. So when we have ceremonies today, in today's time, we have parties to celebrate things, we have events and weddings and all sorts of kinds of things. But the really important one to these people are going to be the solstices and the equinoxes. Those events are more important than any other thing happening in their lives, because when you're in Arkansas, years and years ago, centuries ago really, you're not going to know based on just the weather when you walk out of your house every morning when to farm and when to plant and when to harvest. So they built these mounds actually aligned to the solstice sunsets and the equinox sunsets. Every year, if you stand out on Mound H with us on our solstice and equinox tours here, you'll see what the Plum Bayou people used to. And so you'll see the summer solstice align with the Mound B. On Mound A sunsets, it's going to be the fall and the spring equinoxes. And then on Mound S, if there's a sunset, you're going to be on the winter solstice.
I think it bears repeating that this site is an active archaeological site and one of the largest in the state. As a state park, visitors can see the active work being conducted by the park staff, which helps us better understand the lifestyle of the Plum Bayou people.
Kids always ask, without fail, on every field trip, if there are dinosaur bones here, and it's because a lot of people confuse paleontology with archaeology, so it's always a fun question to answer. The kids are always learning something new, so we don't have paleontology here, to my knowledge anyway, but a lot of archaeologists don't dig down deep enough in Arkansas because archaeology is focused on human cultures and people of the past, whereas paleontologists are more focused on the animals and the creatures from back then. We partner here with the Arkansas Archaeological Survey. So the society of that survey does archaeological digs throughout Arkansas once a year, every summer for 2 weeks. And I actually started that way, getting into archaeology. I was a part of one of the survey society digs. It was amazing. I unearthed like a 500-year-old Native American house. It's crazy. But they still partner with us. We have a lab here, and all of those artifacts that we find through the digs and through the excavations go through the lab and are processed or cleaned, and then eventually end up in museums throughout the state. So my favorite artifact in the museum is the owl effigy that we have. It's really cool because an effigy is anything that they would have created back then in the shape of an animal. So if you make a piece of pottery in the form of a duck, let's say, prehistoric peoples would have seen that, and it would have had a lot of ceremonial value. The owl effigy we have in the museum is one of our most important pieces because of how much value and meaning these people would have seen from that, would have perceived from that. It's very rare to find something like that from that long ago. I mean, it's 1,000 years old. It's cool to be able to see something right in front of you that is that ancient. You don't really understand how awesome it is to see something from 500, 600, 1,000 years ago unless you see it in front of you, and sometimes are able to pick it up.
So archaeological evidence helps us understand the way these Native Americans lived, but what became of the Plum Bayou people?
It's sort of a mystery where these people ended up. They left sometime around 1050 AD. We don't find any artifacts or material culture from this culture past that. So we assume that many groups split off and became the people that we know of today, the historic tribes of Arkansas. But we don't have for sure linkage. So we learn as much as we can while we can, and that's what we do.
We hope you all enjoyed our tour of the Toltec Mounds Archaeological State Park, and we'll consider coming out to visit the site soon. Next month, we'll premiere our March tour on Facebook, where we'll be visiting the Foster Robinson House in Pulaski County. If you're looking for more information on the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, visit our website at arkansaspreservation.com. Thanks for joining us. Our sandwiching and history tours are archived on our YouTube channel, so check them out.